I don't know if y'all remember Tile, which was a little tag that you can place on physical products like your wallet and your backpack, and basically the remote that keeps disappearing in your couches, which I think that might be the reason why they brought out this AirTag, because the Apple remote just be disappearing all the time. Like, everybody that I know who has an Apple TV, that remote just never stays available. But anyway, moving on from there, basically it helped you find things whenever you got lost. It was very useful. I remember I used to buy this all the time for a friend of mine because she used to lose everything. Like, she used to lose her stuff all over the place. So I bought the Tile, and it made life a lot easier to be able to get things, or to be able to find things on her behalf, and to be able to find all the things that she needed. However, Apple being Apple was like, yo, we gonna do this. And for a long time, this has actually been rumored that Apple was actually going to do this, and Apple was actually going to make AirTags. For a long time, Apple was like thinking about doing it, and they're finally doing it. But Apple, they don't just copy, which is that they never just straight up copy anybody for their ideas. What they do is they just take the idea and they innovate on it slightly to bring that cool factor into it, to make it be something that everybody wants to use, to make it be something that everybody will be like, ooh, you know what? I never knew that I needed this thing in the past, but you know what? Now I need this thing, and I'm definitely going to be buying me one of these things. And the cool factor that Apple is using with the AirTag is something that they like to call, they're using their Find My. You remember the Find My iPhone services that you have on your iPhone? Now it's a Find My service, which is basically on everything. Well, they're combining that with the AirTag, and you will be able to ping other devices in order to find your device, all at the same time while keeping your privacy secure, because we trust Apple. Apple has shown that they are good about privacy. And so what they've created is a system where you can find your stuff with precise location, where literally on your phone, you will have an arrow that is pointing you to where you can go find your item, which is amazing. Tile actually tried to do this, but it just did not have the network effect. But Apple has that network effect. As a matter of fact, what is it? 9 out of 10 kids nowadays have an iPhone, and it's almost, I think it's like 7 out of 10 people in the United States use an iPhone. I mean, I was walking around the streets of New York, and the one thing that I noticed was almost every single person either had an AirPod in their ear, or was using an iPhone, or had an iWatch, or what is it? An Apple Watch, not an iWatch, an Apple Watch or something. So the network effect for Apple is so strong. So that's why they can offer this, what is this called? The AirTag, and where you can literally pick your phone up and use it almost like a tracking beacon, like beep, 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 and find whatever it is that you're looking for. But that's what you can expect with AirTag. They're launching it, and it's going to be available on April 30th, and it's going to start at $30 for one and $100 for four. So it's going to be pretty cool. I think it's a pretty interesting device, but at the same time, it's Apple, you know. Apple does Apple things. Apple also announced a few other things. The other thing that Apple announced were new iPads, which, I'm not really like jinxed about it. It just adds new LED features, making it look cool. It's gonna start out at $799 and $1099 for the 12.9-inch model. It's pretty cool, has better colors, all that good stuff that you get with Apple products. And then the cool thing, we'll talk about that in a little bit, is Apple also announced new iMacs, and it comes in all kinds of colors. Like, literally looks like a rainbow effect. But the cool thing about both of these products, about both the iPad and the iMac that they announced, is it's going to be using Apple's M1 chip. Remember, we talked about the M1 chip last year when they announced the MacBook Air and also the MacBook, that they're going to be using the M1 chips in them. And this just shows Apple is slowly diversifying and moving itself away from depending on things like Intel, depending on people like Qualcomm, depending on basically anybody else to use its own service. In other words, it's trying to be as vertically integrated as possible, which produces a lot of great things. When a company is able to produce both its chips and the hardware that it's running on, and the software that it runs on, which we'll talk about a little bit more about software here in a second. But when it's able to do that, it's able to provide unbelievably great service. One of the beautiful things about Apple is the way that everything is so well integrated. The reason why it's so well integrated is because it owns everything. Everything runs on what Apple has created. And so Intel, come on guys, I'm gonna need you to step up. Maybe you can fabricate these chipsets for Apple, which is another way that Intel can make money off of this. But now we're seeing a lot more manufacturers design their own chipsets, but who manufactures it? That's the question to ask. The iMac will start at $1299. Now, the final thing that I think most people actually ignored, even as a matter of fact, in this article that I was reading about it, it didn't even like put it as a main thing. A lot of people ignored. It's like literally nothing. It was just like, oh, they just mentioned this. The biggest news for me that Apple announced is not about the hardware. It's not about any of the things that they actually announced. The biggest thing that Apple announced was their podcast subscription service. I've been saying this for so long. Apple is no longer a hardware company. Apple is a software company. Apple is not trying to just make hardware all the time. It's all about the software for Apple. Apple is focused on trying to create new sources of income, consistent revenue income, and that's why they're going into software. That's why we have Apple TV Plus. That's why we have Apple Music. That's why we have the new Apple bundled service, whatever that thing is called. But the point is, Apple Podcast is bringing in a whole new way, which right after Apple announced this, Spotify announced that they're going to be coming out with a competing service as well. This is massive, especially now that we're seeing that podcast is a pretty large industry. Not a lot of people can make money off of podcasts, but now that you're bringing in this premium subscription service, which is probably only going to be limited to people who are able to get like 1 million downloads a month or something like that, which your boy does not get that, but maybe one day we'll get to that point. But I just want to remind everybody, Apple is not about hardware anymore. It's all about the software. Always remember that when it comes to Apple. I hope you enjoyed that little snippet of the Rambling Mind podcast. If you want more of the Rambling Mind podcast, or if you want to listen to the whole episode that you just heard, go check it out on any podcast listening platform, whether that be Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Stitcher. I could go on, but you guys already know which podcast you love to use to listen to. So go check it out. Link down in the description as well. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Peace.